The first cold breeze of January drifted across rural Kentucky, brushing lightly against the old Slaton family home, the place where more stories had unfolded than any camera could capture. Inside, the atmosphere hummed with the quiet electricity that only comes when life is about to change. And this year, everything was changing. The official Season 6 trailer of 1,000-Pound Sisters had just dropped online, spreading across social media like wildfire. Millions of viewers clicked, commented, argued, cried, and laughed, not knowing that behind that 3-minute clip was a much deeper story, one full of heartbreak, healing, and the kind of growth that only comes when life forces you to choose who you want to become. Amy Slaton lay stretched across her living room couch, scrolling through her phone as the trailer replayed again and again. She saw her own face, smiling, crying, arguing, celebrating, flashing by in quick cuts. She saw Tammy, too, changed in ways the world still wasn't ready for. She saw her family, her past, her mistakes, her victories all stitched into a narrative meant for millions. But all Amy could think was, this year, everything is different. The screen showed her in a witch's hat, laughing at her Halloween-themed wedding rehearsal. Then it flashed to the bachelorette trip in New Orleans, chaotic, loud, full of confetti and regret. Then back to Dixon, where she and Tammy faced off in one of the most explosive arguments the sisters had ever had on camera. Amy winced. The world didn't know how deep those wounds still ran. On the porch, Tammy sat in her beloved teal wheelchair, wrapped in a blanket as she watched the neighborhood waking up. She knew about the trailer too.
Knew it showed her weight loss.
Knew it highlighted her skin removal surgery. Knew it revealed her new independence, volunteering at the animal shelter, planning to move in with Andrea, attending job interviews. But none of that bothered her. What bothered Tammy was the raw footage of her and Amy screaming at each other, faces twisted with years of hurt. What bothered Tammy was that the world would witness the moment they had come closest to breaking apart. What bothered Tammy most of all was the quiet fear she carried inside her chest that the bond she shared with Amy might not survive this storm. The sun rose slowly, its golden light spreading across the porch and warming Tammy's skin. She closed her eyes and breathed in the morning air. A small stray cat wandered up the steps, brushing against her leg. "Hey there, sugar," Tammy whispered, reaching down to pet it. "At least somebody likes me today." The cat purred loudly, unapologetically choosing Tammy as its temporary bed. Tammy chuckled and rubbed its head gently. It felt peaceful, something she'd been chasing for months. Inside, the Slaton household buzzed with its usual chaos. Amy was taping a plastic pumpkin to the wall. Gage was running around wearing a superhero cape. Glenn was chewing on a TV remote. And the cameramen, those quiet shadows always lurking in corners, were patiently waiting for Amy to stop pretending she didn't see them. "One SEC, y'all," Amy called breathlessly as she wrestled the pumpkin into place. "It keeps fouling off. Just stick, dang it."
You had one job.
It fell again. Ugh. The crew laughed silently behind their cameras. Amy sighed and plopped onto the couch, grabbing her script of wedding ideas. Skeleton cake topper, fog machine, black lace veil, pumpkin aisle. She wanted her wedding to feel magical, spooky, unforgettable. A complete reinvention of the girl she used to be. She flipped to the last page, the one she'd written on late at night. "I want a wedding where I feel loved, not laughed at." Amy didn't say it out loud, but that sentence meant more than she cared to admit. Meanwhile, Tammy's world had expanded beyond the porch. She'd been practicing walking again, slow, steady steps, ever since the skin removal surgery that had changed her life. The doctors had warned her that it would take months to regain full strength, but Tammy wasn't the same woman she once was. Every challenge she met these days, she met with fire. She rolled back inside, parking her wheelchair near the kitchen table. The crew waved. She ignored them. After 5 years on camera, she'd learned how to tune out the lens. She reached for her phone. A new message from Andrea popped up. "Andrea, miss you, counting days till we get our own place." Tammy smiled, really smiled. A warm, full, genuine kind of smile she rarely showed the world. Her relationship with Andrea was different from anything she'd ever known. There was no judgment, no pressure to be perfect, no fear of being abandoned. Just support, encouragement,
Hope.
but Tammy also knew the world wasn't ready for this storyline. They barely handled her weight loss without drama. What would they do with her love life? Amy peeked around the kitchen doorway. "You're smiling like you just won the lottery," she teased gently. Tammy shrugged. "Maybe I did." But the softness between them didn't last. It never did. Moments later, the conversation shifted, innocently at first, before spiraling into something darker. A small comment about the wedding turned into a sharp exchange. A misunderstanding grew into frustration. And in seconds, everything cracked open. "You think the world revolves around you," Amy shouted, hands trembling. "It's my turn to live," Tammy shouted back, chest rising with hurt. "You used to be my best friend," Amy said, voice breaking. "And you used to care about me." Tammy snapped. Silence followed. Heavy, bitter, endless. The cameraman didn't dare move. Tammy rolled back until her wheelchair hit the wall. "You know what? Call me Queen Tammy all you want. At least I'm trying to change." Amy's eyes filled with tears. "You're toxic, Tammy. I can't handle your mess no more." The words struck Tammy harder than any physical blow ever had. The room spun. Her throat tightened.
I'm toxic.
Tammy whispered, voice cracking.
I'm toxic.
She turned her head away so the cameras wouldn't catch the pain on her face.
But they always caught everything.
The argument didn't end. It simply paused, hanging between them like a storm cloud waiting to break open again. That night, both sisters sat in their separate rooms, crying quietly into the darkness, their hearts bruised and unsure of how to reach each other anymore. But the world kept moving, and the new season kept filming, and the Slaton sisters' story was still far from over. The silence in the room tightened as the truth settled over everyone like a heavy blanket. For a moment, nobody moved. Even the soft humming of the oxygen machine seemed to fade into the background. Tammy blinked slowly, her eyes filled with a mixture of exhaustion and something deeper, something that had been building quietly behind her smile for months. She shifted in her chair, fingers trembling slightly as she tried to steady herself, but the effort only made her look smaller, fragile in a way the world never saw on TV. The cameras usually caught her loud moments, the jokes, the arguments, the sass. But this was the version of her that almost no one got to witness, the woman who had learned to survive pain in silence. Amy leaned forward, her face softening as she searched her sister's expression. It wasn't the kind of weight loss update fans were used to. This wasn't triumph. It wasn't celebration. It was fear, quiet, raw fear, wrapped in courage. Tammy took a slow breath, as though every ounce of strength she had was being channeled into simply speaking. Her voice cracked slightly, breaking the stillness. She explained that the doctors didn't yet know how long the condition had been quietly working through her system, but they were certain of one thing: it had been attacking her body long before anyone noticed. The weight she had lost wasn't a victory over her past. It was the result of a battle her body was fighting without giving her a choice. Suddenly, the room felt colder. Amy's eyes widened, and Chris' jaw tightened until the muscles along his face twitched. The family had been through surgeries, relapses, addiction struggles, close calls, so many storms they had learned to navigate together. But this felt different. This wasn't just about weight anymore. This was about something even the strongest couldn't simply push through. For the first time in a long time, Tammy wasn't just scared of failure. She was scared of what her own body might do next. But even as fear seeped into the air, something else began to rise within her. She straightened up, wiped the corner of her eye, and tried to smile. Not the forced smile she used to give doctors to pretend she was okay, but a real one, small and trembling, yet filled with determination. She reminded them, and herself, that she had survived things people said she never would. She had climbed out of darkness more than once. She had learned to breathe again, walk again, hope again. Whatever this new challenge was, she wasn't planning to face it alone or give it the power to define her. Amy reached for her hand, squeezing firmly, grounding her. Chris stepped closer, his expression softening as he finally allowed the worry to show. And in that quiet, fragile moment, Tammy realized something she hadn't fully understood until now. Her family wasn't just standing beside her. They were holding her up. Even when the world judged her, they were the ones who saw the parts of her hidden beneath the weight and the pain. And as long as they believed she could fight, she believed it too. The evening light filtered through the curtains, casting soft gold across the living room as Tammy tried to gather her thoughts. She had always been the bold one, the one who hid fear behind sarcasm, the one who chose laughter even when it hurt to breathe. But today, every word she spoke carried the weight of a truth she could no longer outrun. Her eyes drifted to the window, watching dust particles float lazily in the sunbeams, as if the world outside had no idea hers was shifting beneath her feet. Across from her, Amy shifted uneasily, her hands fidgeting with the hem of her shirt. She kept glancing at Tammy, then at the floor, then back at Tammy again, as though searching for the right moment to say something but never finding it. Chris stood against the wall with his arms folded, not out of anger, but out of a desperate need to keep himself together. The seriousness of the situation had built a thick tension in the air, and nobody knew how to break it without shattering into pieces themselves. Finally, Amy exhaled a shaky breath. She asked Tammy what the doctors had told her, really told her. Not the softened version she had shared earlier, but the full truth she had been carrying alone. Tammy hesitated. Her fingers curled into her palms, and her breathing grew shallow. She had always been terrified of disappointing her family, of being the one who worried them, who made them lose sleep, who put them through crisis after crisis. But hiding this wasn't protecting them, it was only isolating her. Her voice was quiet when she finally spoke. She told them that the condition wasn't just rare, it was unpredictable. The doctors were still running tests, trying to understand how extreme the damage was, how far things had progressed. For a moment the room froze again, as though time itself refused to move forward until someone reacted. Amy's eyes watered instantly, her lips trembling as she tried to hold herself together. Chris rubbed the back of his neck, the muscles in his jaw tightening again as he processed the information. Tammy braced herself for panic or anger or blame, but instead, something unexpected happened. Amy crossed the room in 2 quick steps and wrapped her arms around her. Not the careful, hesitant hug you give someone fragile, but the kind that said she was done keeping her distance. The kind that said she wasn't going anywhere. Tammy stiffened, then melted into it, her breath hitching as the walls she'd built around herself began to crack. Chris stepped forward too, placing a supportive hand on Tammy's shoulder. It wasn't much, but it was enough. It was him saying, without words, that he was here even when he didn't know what to say. Even when he was scared. Even when none of them had answers. The weight of fear didn't vanish, but something stronger rose to meet it, a shared determination, a silent agreement that whatever came next, they would survive it together. For the first time that day, Tammy felt something loosen in her chest. Maybe she didn't have control over what her body was doing. Maybe she couldn't predict the next twist in her story. But she wasn't alone in the fight, and that truth wrapped around her like a warm blanket. Outside, the sunlight continued to drift across the room, touching each of them as if reminding them that even the darkest moments still held space for hope. And Tammy, with her family by her side, felt a flicker of strength return, small, fragile, but real. The next morning, the house buzzed with a nervous kind of energy. Amy had been awake long before the sun, moving around with a list in her hand and an energy that seemed to fill every corner of the living room. Paper decorations fluttered in the breeze from the open windows, glitter spilled across the floor, and the faint smell of pumpkin spice lingered in the air. Amy was checking and rechecking everything, tables, candles, seating arrangements, her voice a mix of excitement and stress as she called out reminders to anyone within earshot. Tammy rolled into the room slowly, her walker clicking softly against the hardwood floor. She was exhausted but determined to help, even if she didn't have the same energy as Amy. "Girl," she muttered, "you need a second brain, not a sister who nearly burned breakfast." Amy laughed, waving her hand dramatically. Details, details. We survive chaos here. The two sisters exchanged a look, equal parts exasperation and affection. It was a glance that said everything. No matter how many obstacles, they would face them together. Chris was sprawled on the couch, pretending to be asleep, but secretly listening. He had been drafted to handle anything that might break under the weight of Amy's enthusiasm, from the fragile jack-o'-lantern decorations to the inflatable spider that seemed to grow more sinister every hour. Misty and Amanda arrived shortly after, each carrying bags of props, fake cobwebs, and a sense of urgency that rivaled Amy's. The room soon resembled a miniature haunted fair, full of laughter, frantic energy, and the occasional shouted warning when someone nearly tripped over a cable or knocked over a candle. Despite the chaos, Amy moved like a conductor, orchestrating the madness with sharp commands and gentle nudges. Tammy, check the table runner. Chris, the spider goes over there. Misty, hold that pumpkin before it commits murder. Tammy groaned but smiled. I swear, your job description should be Queen of Stress. Amy winked, and proud of it. Amid the laughter and mild panic, a quiet moment slipped in. Tammy sat down on a small chair in the corner, watching her sister move through the storm of preparation. She realized, not for the first time, how much Amy carried, not just in these small chaotic moments, but in life. Amy carried the family, the love, the stress, and the hope, all at once. And even though Tammy had her own struggles, she understood that this was Amy's moment to shine too. For once, she wasn't just surviving her own challenges, she was witnessing her sister create something beautiful from the chaos. Later that day, Amy had one of her most important appointments, the final wedding dress fitting. She walked into the boutique with Misty and Amanda trailing behind, their chatter filling the room as the stylist guided her toward a rack of dresses. Amy's heart thumped in a rhythm that matched her excitement and her anxiety. She ran her fingers over the fabrics, each one a symbol of the celebration she had been dreaming of for months. She had imagined this day countless times, but standing there now, the reality hit her with an unexpected force. This wasn't just about a dress. It was about taking control, reclaiming joy, and stepping into a new chapter of her life. The stylist helped her into a sleek black gown, a choice Amy had made weeks ago. The fit was perfect, hugging her in the right places while flowing freely elsewhere. Amy twirled slowly, the hem brushing against the floor. She looked in the mirror, and for a moment, all the stress melted away. She wasn't just a bride. She was a woman who had survived storms, faced challenges head-on, and still found room for happiness. Wow, Misty whispered. You look incredible. Amanda nodded. Yeah, Queen Amy. You could rule Halloween and a wedding at the same time. Amy laughed, feeling a warmth spread through her chest. This was her moment, chaotic preparations and all, and she was ready to own it. Even with the excitement, Amy felt a twinge of nervousness. The bachelorette trip to New Orleans was coming next, and she hadn't forgotten the responsibilities waiting at home. Her boys, her family, Tammy. Every decision carried weight, but Amy reminded herself that she didn't have to do it all perfectly. The beauty of this season wasn't in flawless execution. It was in living it, experiencing it, and letting the love in her life guide her through every chaotic, hilarious, and emotional moment. As the sun dipped lower in the sky, Amy returned home, still buzzing from the dress appointment. Tammy had already set the table with snacks and decorations for a small pre-bachelorette celebration at home. The two sisters sat side by side, laughing at minor mishaps, Amy knocking over a cup of punch, Tammy accidentally sticking a sticker to her forehead, but underneath the laughter was a deep sense of connection. They had argued, cried, and celebrated together for years, and even in the chaos, that bond remained unshakable. Amy leaned back, her hand brushing over Tammy's. You know, she said softly, no matter what happens, I couldn't do any of this without you. Tammy smiled, a quiet acknowledgement that she understood completely. I've got you too, Amy. Always. The room settled into a rare moment of calm, the kind that reminded both sisters that no matter the drama of the season ahead, they were in it together. Outside, The early evening breeze drifted through the open windows, carrying the scent of fall leaves and distant bonfires. The house, still full of decorations, laughter, and love, seemed to hum with possibility. And for Amy, every small chaos, every frantic movement, every loud laugh was a reminder. This wedding wasn't just about a day. It was about creating a life full of moments that mattered, messy, emotional, and beautifully real. She knew that whatever came next, the bachelorette trip, the wedding day, the family drama, she was ready to face it. With Tammy by her side, with her family, and with her own strength, Amy felt a quiet certainty. This was going to be a season to remember. The next morning, the house buzzed with a different energy, excitement tinged with nerves. Amy's bachelorette trip to New Orleans was only hours away, and she couldn't stop pacing. Her suitcase lay open on the floor, half filled with clothes, glittering accessories, and an assortment of items she was sure she couldn't survive without. Tammy leaned in her wheelchair nearby, watching her sister fuss, the corners of her mouth twitching with amusement. "Girl, breathe," Tammy said, her tone both teasing and tender. "It's just a trip, not the apocalypse." Amy laughed, snapping the zipper shut with a triumphant flourish. "This is not just a trip, it's a life event. A memory. A celebration of surviving everything and still having fun." Tammy smiled, her hands resting on her lap. She remembered the long nights of hospital stays, the tears, the setbacks, and the victories. Watching Amy navigate her life with such determination had always been inspiring. "You deserve it," she said quietly. "Every crazy, glitter-covered bit of it." Amy's gaze softened. "Thanks, sis. You too. This season, you've been killing it. I see you, Tammy. Independent, strong, unstoppable." Tammy chuckled, feeling the warmth of the compliment, though she quickly masked it with a sarcastic grin. Yeah. Don't make me cry before you leave." Chris joined them, carrying a bag full of snacks for the trip. "You sure you packed enough?" he asked, eyeing Amy's suitcase. "I don't want you living on vending machine food in NOLA." Amy waved him off dramatically. "Chris, please. I have everything. Glitter, sunscreen, costume props, snacks, heck, I even packed extra socks just in case."
Chris shook his head, laughing.
Only you could turn a vacation into a military operation. The ride to the airport was chaotic, but filled with laughter. Tammy and Amy shared memories, jokes, and lighthearted arguments over directions and playlist choices. For Tammy, it was a chance to step back from the everyday struggles and celebrate Amy's happiness, even if it meant letting her sister take center stage for a while. "Promise me one thing," Tammy said, gripping Amy's hand. "No bachelorette drama." Tourists stopped to watch, some snapping their own photos, but the sisters paid them no mind. Here, in the midst of music, laughter, and the gentle river breeze, Tammy felt something she hadn't felt in months: lightness. The weight of daily struggles, hospital visits, and the endless routine seemed to lift, if only for a few fleeting hours. That evening, Amy's bachelorette party truly began. A group of friends gathered at a small, vibrant venue tucked away in the French Quarter. Lights twinkled above, music pulsed, and the atmosphere was electric. Amy's eyes sparkled with excitement and nerves as she stepped inside, taking in the energy around her. Tammy, seated nearby, cheered with pride. Watching her sister take center stage, beaming with joy, reminded her of the long journey they had shared, from the struggles of the past to the triumphs of today. Amy danced, laughed, and embraced friends old and new, while Tammy observed, occasionally joining in when her confidence allowed. The music wrapped around them, lifting their spirits and smoothing out the rough edges of reality. For Tammy, the evening was a lesson in patience and observation, witnessing happiness in someone she loved fiercely. Every laugh Amy shared, every smile she gave, seemed to validate the years of struggle, therapy, and perseverance that had brought them here. As the night drew on, the group settled onto a balcony overlooking the glowing streets of New Orleans. The city pulsed below them with life and chaos, and the sisters sat side by side, absorbing the moment. Amy turned to Tammy, her voice soft but earnest. "I don't think I've ever done something this fun without worrying about the next thing." Tammy reached out, brushing a hand over Amy's. "You deserve it. We both do. But remember, it's not just fun. It's a reminder of why we keep going, why we fight, why we survive." Amy nodded, her eyes misting slightly.
"Yeah."
"And I couldn't do any of it without you." Tammy smiled, the emotion unspoken but felt deeply. They leaned back, watching the lights twinkle below, feeling connected not just to the city, but to each other. For a moment, everything was still. No drama, no cameras, no expectations, just two sisters, surviving, thriving, and finding pieces of themselves in the chaos of life. The next morning brought a quieter energy. Amy and Tammy explored the quieter streets, indulging in beignets and coffee, savoring the calm before the next whirlwind of events. Every laugh, every step, every shared glance strengthened their bond, and Tammy realized that while the world outside could be unpredictable, inside the circle of family and love, they were unbreakable. As they packed their bags to return home, Tammy reflected on the journey. From hospital rooms to New Orleans streets, from whispered promises to loud laughter, they had come full circle. The experience wasn't just a trip, it was a testament to resilience, love, and the unspoken understanding that no matter how challenging life became, they would face it together. Amy, pulling her suitcase through the bustling airport, shot Tammy a grin. "Next adventure?" Tammy smirked. "Next adventure." And with that, they stepped forward, ready to face whatever came next, side by side. Back home in Kentucky, the air felt heavier, as if it carried all the responsibilities Amy had been trying to leave behind during the trip. Tammy guided her wheelchair into the living room, her eyes scanning the space, noting small details that seemed different after being away. The house smelled faintly of home, of meals cooked, laundry folded, or in Amy's case, mostly half-folded. Chris was already there, fiddling with some electronics, and he looked up with a grin. "Back already? Thought you two would be lost in a jazz parade for a week." Amy laughed, dragging her suitcase inside.
"We survived."
"Barely. But we brought back snacks, stories, and a lifetime of memories." Tammy rolled her eyes.
"Probably.
"But I'll survive. Hopefully with dignity intact." Tammy smirked. "You? Dignity? I don't know if that word exists in your dictionary." Amy laughed, leaning back. "Then I'll define it today, with glitter and tears." Family chaos continued in small doses. Chris's attempts at cooking became legendary disasters, each incident more ridiculous than the last. One night, he decided to prepare a healthy stir-fry. Within minutes, smoke filled the kitchen, Tammy wheezing with laughter in her chair, and Amy frantically waving a towel. "Chris, you're supposed to cook, not start a fire alarm contest." Chris, flustered, grinned sheepishly. "It's all part of the experience. Adds flavor." The sisters laughed, realizing that no matter the challenges or tensions, moments like these reminded them why family and chaos were inseparable. Amid the drama and chaos, there were moments of deep emotional connection. One quiet evening, Amy and Tammy sat on the porch, sharing memories of their childhood. Tammy spoke softly, recounting the times they hid in the school bathroom to escape teasing, the nights spent dreaming of the future, and the fears that once paralyzed them. Amy listened, her hand resting on Tammy's. "We've come so far," Amy whispered. "From hiding to thriving, from fear to, well, survival and growth." Tammy nodded, tears forming in her eyes.
"Yeah."
"And we did it together, no matter what." These days of growth, laughter, and tension became the rhythm of their lives. Every challenge, from wedding planning to personal setbacks, was met with resilience and sisterly support. The sisters had learned that life wasn't about perfection. It was about presence, support, and relentless determination. Every step, whether small or monumental, brought them closer to understanding themselves and each other. The following morning, Tammy awoke to the soft hum of the hospital hallway outside her room. Light streamed through the blinds, casting long shadows across her face. She flexed her fingers slowly, testing her strength, her mind already buzzing with the day ahead. Today wasn't just any day. It was her first real attempt at navigating the community center alone after weeks of physical therapy. Amy hovered near the doorway, arms crossed but eyes warm. "You ready for this, sis?" she asked. Tammy nodded, determination flickering in her eyes. "I think so. Let's do it." The drive to the center was quiet but purposeful. Tammy focused on each movement, gripping the wheelchair handles with precision. Amy's hand rested lightly on the back, offering guidance without intrusion. "Look at you," Amy whispered as they approached the entrance. "You've got this. One step at a time." Tammy inhaled deeply, nodding. Every small step felt monumental, every breath a reminder of how far she'd come. Inside, the center buzzed with life. Children played, adults chatted, and the staff moved efficiently from room to room. Tammy rolled into the activity room, where her first task was a light exercise circuit. She glanced at Amy, who gave an encouraging nod. "Remember, slow and steady. We're celebrating every step, not racing." Tammy's focus sharpened. With careful movements, she completed the circuit, her muscles protesting but her spirit refusing to give in. Amy clapped enthusiastically, drawing smiles from onlookers. "That's my sister. Strong, unstoppable, and fierce." Later, Tammy sat quietly during a therapy session, recounting her feelings about independence, fear, and hope. The therapist nodded thoughtfully, guiding her through visualization exercises designed to build confidence and emotional resilience. Tammy's brow furrowed in concentration as she imagined herself navigating a world without constant supervision, taking control of her daily life and responsibilities. Amy watched from the corner, tears welling in her eyes. Seeing Tammy embrace growth, face fear, and push boundaries brought a swell of pride unlike anything she had felt before. As the day progressed, small victories piled up. Tammy successfully completed a few errands on her own, from picking up groceries to returning library books. Each accomplishment, though minor to an outsider, felt like a mountain conquered. Amy remained nearby, a steady support and cheerleader, but she let Tammy lead. By evening, Tammy's face radiated exhaustion mixed with triumph. "I didn't think I could do it," she admitted softly. Amy smiled, brushing hair back from her forehead. "You just did. Every single day, you're proving what you're capable of." Meanwhile, Amy's wedding plans intensified. Vendors called, decorations arrived, and last-minute adjustments demanded her attention. Tammy, sensing her sister's stress, decided to contribute in a unique way by organizing small, personal touches for the event. She carefully painted signs, crafted table centerpieces, and even wrote a heartfelt note for Amy's wedding day. When Amy discovered the work Tammy had done, she hugged her tightly. "You did all this? Sis, you're amazing. I can't believe you've been doing this on top of everything else." Tammy laughed softly, shrugging. "Consider it my way of being part of your special day, without controlling every detail." Amy chuckled, understanding the sentiment. The family, meanwhile, prepared for a weekend of chaos, combining Amy's wedding tasks, Chris's antics, and routine life responsibilities. Chris attempted a new recipe for the first time in weeks, insisting he could make a gourmet salad. Tammy wheeled nearby, observing the inevitable chaos with amusement. Smoke alarm shrieked. Lettuce was everywhere. Amy groaned, half laughing, half crying. "Chris, why do I let you touch food?" Chris held up a spatula, grinning sheepishly. "Adds flavor." Tammy laughed, wheezing from laughter, finally relaxing into a rare moment of pure joy. Later that night, Tammy and Amy sat on the porch, sipping tea. The sky stretched in shades of deep purple and indigo, dotted with stars. The sounds of the night carried distant laughter, chirping insects, and the gentle rustle of leaves. "You know," Tammy began, her voice quiet, "we've been through so much, and yet it feels like we're just getting started." Amy nodded, leaning back. "Every struggle, every argument, every triumph, it's all part of this. And we face it together." Tammy smiled, tears glistening.
Together.
They sat in silence, savoring the calm, the bond between them stronger than ever, the chaos of the day giving way to reflection and connection. The following days brought a mixture of therapy sessions, wedding planning, and household adjustments. Each day had its challenges, but also moments of laughter, progress, and intimacy. Tammy practiced walking longer distances, mastering tasks she once thought impossible. Amy balanced the chaos of wedding planning with personal reflection, gradually learning to let go of perfection and embrace presence. Every evening, they shared stories, small victories, and quiet moments on the porch, weaving memories that no camera could truly capture. One afternoon, Tammy surprised Amy with a carefully prepared scrapbook filled with photos, notes, and mementos from their shared journey. Amy's hands shook as she flipped through the pages, tears streaming. This is everything. I can't believe you did this. Tammy shrugged, smiling softly. We've been through a lot, Amy. I wanted us to remember it, all of it. Amy pulled her into a tight hug, whispering, Thank you, Tammy. For everything. For being my sister, my anchor, my chaos, my heart. Tammy laughed quietly, the sound full of warmth and love. Well, someone has to keep you grounded. That night, the sisters lay awake, reflecting on the day. Challenges remained, from health concerns to family drama, but in those quiet moments, they felt resilient. Their bond, tested by years of change, conflict, and growth, had emerged stronger than ever. Tomorrow, they knew, would bring new trials and new victories, but together, they were unstoppable. Morning light filtered softly through the curtains, waking Amy before her alarm. She stretched, taking a deep breath, feeling the cool Kentucky air seep in through the slightly open window. Today was a big day, the final wedding dress fitting. Amy had dreamed of this moment for weeks, but nerves fluttered in her stomach. Tammy rolled into the room, her own energy calm yet supportive. Big day, huh? She said, leaning on her walker slightly. Amy laughed nervously. I guess you could say that. Dress, flowers, chaos, maybe a little crying thrown in for good measure. Tammy smirked. Sounds like your life in a nutshell. The boutique was bustling when they arrived. Dresses hung elegantly on racks, sequins shimmering under the soft lights. Amy tried on gown after gown, each time receiving notes from her seamstress. Tammy offered her opinions honestly, sometimes with humor. This one makes you look like a queen, she said, giving a thumbs up. Amy twirled, catching her reflection in the mirror, feeling the weight of all the decisions she had made in recent months. Queen Amy, huh? She murmured. Don't get used to it, Tammy quipped. Queens have to survive the wedding first. They both laughed, a lightness filling the space that had been absent for weeks. Meanwhile, life at home continued its unpredictable rhythm. Chris was at it again, experimenting in the kitchen. Tammy wheeled in cautiously, sensing the impending disaster. Smoke wafted through the air, and a burnt smell lingered. Chris, not again. Tammy groaned, covering her face. Chris waved a spatula like a knight with a sword. Fear not. Today we conquer breakfast. Amy peeked through the doorway, sighing. Conquer? Or destroy? Chris grinned. It's all part of the adventure, Amy. Tammy chuckled despite herself, shaking her head. The chaos was tiring but comforting, a reminder that life with family was messy, loud, but never dull. Back at the rehabilitation center, Tammy's progress continued steadily. She participated in therapy sessions with determination, each step outside the wheelchair feeling like a victory. Caleb was always nearby, offering encouragement and quiet support. You're stronger than you realize, he whispered one afternoon as they walked through the garden together. Tammy smiled, gripping the railing firmly. I'm learning, step by step. Thanks for believing in me. Caleb squeezed her hand. Always. They shared moments of silence, comfortable in the knowledge that together they could face any challenge, no matter how confining their environment seemed. At home, Amy struggled to balance wedding plans with family responsibilities. Two energetic boys, Gage and Glenn, demanded constant attention, while Tammy needed her support and guidance. Amy often found herself multitasking, coordinating with vendors over the phone, ensuring Chris didn't burn down the kitchen, and helping Tammy with her exercises. It was exhausting, but every time she glanced at Tammy, she felt a surge of motivation. The sisters' bond, forged in years of struggle and triumph, became her anchor in the whirlwind of responsibilities. One evening, the sisters gathered around the kitchen table, crafting handmade invitations for the wedding. Tammy carefully glued decorations onto each card while Amy addressed the envelopes. Laughter echoed through the room as they joked about past mishaps. "Remember when you almost set the dining room table on fire?" Tammy asked, eyes sparkling. Amy laughed, shaking her head. "Yeah, and you yelled at me for burning water." Classic. These small moments, mundane to outsiders, were priceless to them, a balance of chaos, humor, and love. The following day, Tammy faced another challenge, a public outing alone. She rolled into a small shopping center, her confidence bolstered by weeks of therapy. Each step, each maneuver of her wheelchair felt like a personal victory. People glanced curiously, but Tammy ignored the stares, focusing on her independence. Amy followed discreetly, observing with pride. "Look at you," she whispered. "You're unstoppable." Tammy smiled, a blend of nervousness and exhilaration. Every new experience reinforced the reality that her life was expanding beyond limitations she had once believed were permanent. Meanwhile, at the Slaton household, Chris attempted another culinary masterpiece. Tammy wheeled in cautiously, sensing smoke before she saw it. Amy groaned, anticipating disaster. "Chris, what now?" Chris held up a frying pan like a trophy. "Behold, my attempt at a 3-course meal." Tammy laughed, shaking her head. 3-course disaster, more like it. Amy joined in the laughter, realizing that despite the chaos, these moments stitched the fabric of family life, binding them together in ways no calm or order could achieve. That night, Tammy and Amy shared a quiet moment on the porch. Stars sparkled overhead, and the gentle hum of crickets filled the air. "I can't believe how far we've come," Amy whispered, her hand brushing Tammy's. Tammy nodded, a soft smile on her lips. "From hiding in bathrooms at school to standing here, thriving, it's crazy, isn't it?" Amy laughed softly. "And yet, here we are, surviving, growing, and maybe even enjoying it a little." They sat together, savoring the peace, the laughter, and the bond that had carried them through years of challenges, victories, and life's unpredictable chaos. The morning sun poured into the living room as Amy shuffled about, juggling invitations, baby wipes, and a cup of lukewarm coffee. Today was Gage's first birthday, and the excitement mixed with nerves. Tammy rolled into the room, her walker clicking softly against the floor. She was wearing a sparkling party hat, slightly askew, and holding a box of fruit snacks. "I brought the treats," she announced proudly. Amy grinned, exhausted but happy. "Girl, it's a baby's birthday, not a catering event." Tammy shrugged, her smile wide. "Healthy snacks are important, okay?" The sisters laughed together, the sound warm and familiar. The house transformed into a chaotic mix of balloons, streamers, and giggling toddlers. Chris arrived first, carrying a massive wrapped box, followed by Amanda with bags of confetti shaped like chicken drumsticks, and Misty balancing a homemade cake that leaned precariously. Tammy wheezed from laughter at the sight. "This is insane," she gasped. Amy rolled her eyes but couldn't suppress her grin. "Welcome to our family chaos, Gage." Cameras rolled as everyone gathered, capturing each priceless reaction. Gage's eyes lit up at the decorations, the chaos, and the energy that seemed to fill every corner of the room. The gift-giving began. Tammy handed Gage a soft plush elephant, her cheeks flushed with pride as he immediately hugged it. "I wanted something cute," she whispered. Next came Chris, presenting a set of tiny rubber tools. "Start him young," he said, grinning. Amanda followed with a baby-sized hoodie labeled Mama's Little Legend, which Gage immediately tried to pull over his head. Laughter erupted around the room, a perfect mix of chaos and joy. Even Tammy's wheelchair became part of the comedy, bumping slightly into the table as everyone dodged spilled confetti. Then came the cake smash, the moment everyone had been waiting for. Amy carried out a small round cake decorated in yellow frosting with a smiling sun on top. Gage approached cautiously, poking at the cake with tiny fingers before plunging his whole face in, sending frosting flying everywhere. Tammy wheezed from laughter, holding her stomach. Chris yelled proudly, "That's my boy," while Amanda clicked countless photos, trying to capture the perfect moment. Amy clapped her hands in delight. "Gage, you just made our day." The room echoed with laughter, love, and the occasional shriek of surprise as frosting found its way to unexpected places. Later, as the chaos died down, the sisters sat together, exhausted but glowing. Tammy rolled up beside Amy, her voice soft. "You know, even with all the crazy, I wouldn't trade this for anything." Amy smiled, brushing her hair back. "Me neither. It's messy, loud, and unpredictable, but it's ours." Tammy nodded, resting her head on Amy's shoulder. "We survived everything so far, and we'll survive everything coming next." Amy wrapped an arm around her sister, feeling the weight of years, challenges, and victories settle into a quiet contentment. The next week brought more therapy milestones for Tammy. Each session pushed her further, testing strength, endurance, and confidence. Amy stayed close but let Tammy take the lead, celebrating every step, every movement, and every triumph. "Look at you," Amy whispered during one session. "Standing taller, moving faster, stronger every day. I'm proud of you, sis." Tammy's cheeks flushed, a mix of pride and humility. "Thanks, Amy.
Couldn't do it without you."
The bond between them, once strained by jealousy, arguments, and fears, now shone with resilience and trust. Meanwhile, Amy's wedding planning intensified. Meetings with florists, caterers, and venues filled her schedule, but Tammy found ways to support her. From hand-painted signs to organizing small personal touches, Tammy contributed in meaningful ways. Amy, overwhelmed at times, found solace in her sister's quiet dedication. "You've done so much for this," Amy said one evening. Tammy shrugged, smiling softly. "Just a little way to be part of it without bossing you around." Amy hugged her tightly. "It means everything." Amidst the whirlwind of events, the sisters found moments of reflection. On quiet evenings, they sat on the porch, sipping tea and watching the sun dip behind the Kentucky hills. "I can't believe how far we've come," Amy whispered. Tammy smiled faintly, eyes glistening. "From hiding in bathrooms at school to standing here, thriving, it's unreal." Amy laughed softly. "And chaotic. Don't forget chaotic." They both laughed, the sound mingling with the evening breeze, a testament to survival, growth, and unbreakable family bonds. Life at the Slaton household remained unpredictable. Chris continued his culinary experiments, Amy balanced wedding plans with parenting, and Tammy celebrated small but meaningful victories daily. Each day was a mix of triumphs, failures, laughter, and tears, shaping the sisters into stronger, more compassionate versions of themselves. Through it all, their bond held firm, a lifeline that had weathered storms, surgeries, arguments, and joy. As the sun set, Tammy and Amy reflected on the journey ahead. They knew challenges awaited, health struggles, family dynamics, and personal growth, but they also knew they could face anything together. Tammy smiled softly. "No matter what comes next, we'll handle it, one step at a time." Amy nodded, squeezing her sister's hand.
Together.
Always together. The evening air was calm, filled with the soft sounds of the countryside. For the first time in a long while, both sisters felt a profound sense of hope, strength, and readiness. The next morning began in a quiet hush, the kind that felt unusual for the Slaton household. Tammy woke earlier than usual, the faint sounds of birds drifting through the open window. She stared at the ceiling for a moment, gathering her thoughts, feeling the weight of another day filled with appointments, tests, and questions. But today, something felt different. There was a heaviness mixed with a strange new clarity, as if her body was trying to reveal a truth she wasn't fully ready to face yet. Amy knocked lightly before stepping in, her hair messy from sleep and her face still marked with the lines of last night's worries. "Hey," she whispered softly. Tammy blinked, sitting up. "Hey, you good?" Amy tried to smile, but it wavered.
I'm okay.
"Just thinking about everything." Tammy exhaled slowly, nodding. "Same." They shared a quiet moment before Amy cleared her throat. "We've got that appointment today. They're doing the big test." The tone in her voice carried more weight than the words themselves. Tammy swallowed, her heart beating a little faster. "Yeah, I know." She tried to sound steady, but Amy caught the subtle tremble. Still, she didn't push. Instead, she moved closer and sat beside Tammy, resting her head gently against her shoulder. "No matter what they say, I will figure it out. I'm right here." Tammy closed her eyes for a second. "Thank you, Ames." At the medical center, the sterile hallway smelled faintly of antiseptic and cold air. Tammy rolled through in her wheelchair, her hands gripping the wheels a little tighter than usual. Amy walked beside her, glancing over every few seconds as if making sure she didn't disappear. The doctor greeted them with a calm, professional smile, but Tammy could sense the seriousness behind his eyes. "We're going to take a deeper look today," he explained. "It might take some time, but the results will help guide us forward." Tammy nodded silently. The machines hummed around her as the tests began. She tried to stay focused, counting her breaths, feeling the cool touch of the equipment against her skin. Amy watched from behind the glass window, anxiety tightening her chest. She pressed her palm flat against the barrier, wishing she could somehow take the discomfort away. When the test was finally done, Tammy returned to the small waiting room, exhausted. Amy sat beside her, rubbing her back gently. "You okay?" she asked. Tammy shrugged, forcing a small smile. "Just tired. And hungry." Amy laughed softly, relief loosening her shoulders. "Okay, that's normal. If you weren't hungry, I'd be worried." A nurse entered with a stack of papers and asked them to wait for the doctor. The minutes dragged. Tammy tapped her fingers against the armrest, a nervous rhythm. Amy watched her carefully. "You're scared," she whispered. Tammy didn't deny it. I don't want bad news. Not again." Her voice cracked slightly, and Amy reached over, grabbing her hand. "Whatever it is, we're handling it together. You hear me? You're not doing this alone anymore." Finally, the doctor returned, his expression unreadable. He sat down across from them, folding his hands. Tammy braced herself, swallowing hard. Amy's grip tightened around her fingers. "Your results show some changes we need to monitor closely," he began. Tammy felt her stomach drop. The doctor continued, choosing his words with care. "It's not something we can ignore anymore, but it's also not something we're giving up on." The room felt heavy, the air thick and slow. Tammy leaned back, feeling the world shift slightly beneath her. She tried to breathe, but her chest felt tight. Amy moved closer, brushing tears from her own eyes before they could fall. "We're going to fight this. Whatever it is, we're fighting it," she whispered. When they finally left the clinic, Tammy stared out the window of the car, watching trees blur past. Her mind was a whirl of fear and denial, but underneath it, something else flickered, a quiet determination. She wasn't ready to give up. She had survived too much, fought too long, and proved too many people wrong. She wasn't going to stop now. That evening, the family gathered at Amy's house. Chris brought over dinner, mostly burnt, partly edible, and Amanda arrived with her unstoppable energy, filling the room with chatter. They didn't bombard Tammy with questions. They didn't push for details. They simply existed beside her, creating a space of warmth and noise and love that wrapped around her like a blanket. As the night wound down, Tammy found herself sitting on the porch, breathing in the cool air. Amy joined her with 2 mugs of tea. They didn't talk at first, just sat in the quiet, letting the crickets fill the space. Finally, Tammy whispered, "I'm scared." Amy nodded. "Me too." Tammy sniffed, wiping her nose. "But I'm not giving up." Amy smiled gently. "Good. Because we're just getting started." The stars above shimmered softly, and Tammy felt something settle in her heart. Not comfort exactly, but a steady strength rising from a place she thought she had lost long ago. The morning air carried a chill as Tammy stepped outside, her walker steady beneath her hands. Dew clung to the blades of grass, sparkling in the sun like tiny diamonds. She paused on the porch, feeling the cool breeze brush against her face. Sleep hadn't come easily the night before. Her mind replayed the doctor's words over and over, each sentence weighed down by uncertainty. But today, she felt a strange mixture of fear and resolve urging her forward. She wasn't ready to sink into doubt.
Not yet.
Inside, Amy moved around the kitchen with a quiet determination. She poured cereal for the boys, packed their lunch bags, and checked her wedding planning notebook for the 10th time that morning. But her eyes kept drifting toward the window, searching for Tammy's figure. When she finally spotted her sister sitting on the porch, she exhaled softly, almost in relief. After finishing the breakfast rush, she grabbed a blanket and stepped outside. "It's cold," she said gently, draping it over Tammy's shoulders. "You'll catch something." Tammy offered a tiny smile. "Then maybe I'll finally lose more weight." Amy rolled her eyes, but her laugh was warm. "Girl, you're impossible." They sat together quietly, watching the world wake up. After a few minutes, Tammy whispered, "Do you ever wonder why things happen the way they do?" Amy paused, the question settling heavily between them. "All the time," she admitted. "But I think maybe it's not about understanding it. Maybe it's about surviving it." Tammy stared ahead, her breath visible in the chilly morning air. "I just don't want to be the reason everyone worries again." Amy's voice softened, tender but firm. "You're not a burden. You're my sister. Worrying about you is part of loving you." Later, they drove to the rehab center for Tammy's scheduled therapy session. The familiar halls buzzed softly with activity, nurses checking charts, patients moving slowly through their exercises, the rhythmic beep of machines in the background. Tammy gripped her walker tighter as she approached the therapy room. She felt exposed, vulnerable. The doctor's words from yesterday haunted her with each step. But when she saw her therapist smiling encouragingly, something inside her steadied. The session pushed her in ways she wasn't used to. Each movement felt heavier, each breath deeper. Sweat formed on her brow as she used the parallel bars to practice her steps. "One more," the therapist urged gently. Tammy's legs trembled, but she lifted one foot, then the other. "Good," he said. "Again." Amy watched from the side, hands clasped tightly, fighting tears. Moments like this, simple, overlooked by most, felt monumental to her. Tammy wasn't just fighting her diagnosis. She was fighting for her life, step by shaky step. After therapy, Tammy slumped into her wheelchair, exhausted but proud. "I did it," she whispered. Amy nodded, swallowing the lump in her throat. "You did more than that. You crushed it." Tammy chuckled weakly. "Barely." "Barely still counts," Amy replied, brushing a strand of hair from Tammy's forehead. The afternoon passed with family calling and checking in. Amanda asked if Tammy needed help with groceries. Misty offered to come over to make dinner. Chris threatened to show up with a giant homemade casserole, something Tammy immediately rejected. "No," she told him over the phone. "If you bring food, I'm filing a complaint with the health department." The room erupted in laughter, easing the tension that had hung over them since yesterday. By evening, Tammy felt drained. She settled into her recliner, blanket tucked around her, as Amy brought her soup and a fresh bottle of water. The boys played nearby, filling the living room with soft chatter and giggles. Tammy watched them, her expression distant yet warm. "They're growing so fast," she murmured. Amy nodded. "Too fast sometimes." Tammy smiled faintly. "Promise me you'll take care of yourself too. Not just them, and not just me." Amy's hand stilled on the soup bowl. "I promise," she said, though her voice carried the weight of someone still learning how to make space for themselves. When night fell, they once again found themselves on the porch. Tammy looked up at the sky, stars twinkling through the darkness. "I keep thinking about what the doctor said," she whispered. Amy leaned forward, elbows on her knees. Me too. Tammy's eyes glistened. I'm scared, but I don't want fear to make decisions for me anymore. Amy gently nudged her shoulder. Then don't let it. Let hope do it instead. Tammy let out a slow breath. Hope's quieter than fear. Yeah, Amy said softly, but it's stronger when you let it be. The night grew colder, but neither of them moved. Together they sat beneath the stars, wrapped in silence and shared strength, knowing that the road ahead was uncertain, but they were not walking it alone. The next morning began with the soft glow of pale sunlight seeping through the curtains, painting the walls in gentle gold. Amy woke before the boys for once, her mind already crowded with thoughts of Tammy, the wedding, and the long list of things she still hadn't finished. Her phone buzzed softly on the nightstand. A message from the rehab center. Nothing alarming, just a reminder about Tammy's follow-up appointment. Still, her heart skipped the way it always did whenever anything related to her sister appeared on the screen. Down the hall, Tammy was already awake too. She had barely slept, her body tired but her mind restless. After the doctor's update, every morning felt heavier, like she was waking up with something sitting on her chest that she couldn't see or explain. She moved slowly to the bathroom, gripping the walker, breathing deliberately. Even with the discomfort, she didn't call for Amy. She needed to do this part herself. When she finally came into the kitchen, Amy had breakfast ready, plates lined neatly, cartoons playing in the background to keep the boys entertained. Morning, Amy said, trying to sound cheerful. Tammy nodded. Smells good. Amy smiled, but Tammy noticed the slight tightness around her eyes. Stress.
Worry.
The look Amy tried to hide but never quite managed. They ate quietly for a few minutes, until Tammy spoke up softly. I was thinking, maybe after my appointment today, we could go somewhere. Just us. Amy looked up, surprised. Yeah? Like where? Tammy shrugged. Don't matter. Just somewhere that isn't a hospital or a living room. Amy chuckled. Okay, we can do that. Later, they drove to the rehab center, music playing lightly through the speakers. Tammy stared out the window, watching the small Kentucky town roll by, the same streets she'd seen her whole life, now feeling both familiar and strangely fragile. When they arrived, the staff greeted her warmly, and she offered small smiles in return. But once inside the doctor's office, her calm began to crack. The doctor reviewed her vitals, asked about her breathing, her mobility, her pain levels. Tammy answered honestly, even though each admission made her throat tighten. She hated feeling like she was walking backward after coming so far. The doctor listened carefully, taking notes. There's progress, he said. But your body is going through a lot, Tammy. We need to be cautious. Tammy nodded, swallowing. So, what now? We monitor. We adjust your plan. And we take it slow. You're not failing, you're adapting. Amy reached out and touched Tammy's hand, giving it a gentle squeeze.
See?
One step at a time. When they left the building, Tammy let out a long, shaky breath she didn't even realize she was holding. The sky had brightened, a soft breeze moving through the trees, and for a moment, she simply closed her eyes and let the air settle her nerves. Okay, she whispered.
I'm okay.
They drove to a quiet roadside park just a few minutes away. Tammy sat on a bench under a big oak tree, watching sunlight flicker through the leaves. It was peaceful, something she didn't know she needed until now. Amy sat beside her, kicking at a pebble with her shoe. You want to talk about it? She asked gently. Not really, Tammy admitted. Then after a pause, but also, yeah. She picked at a loose thread on her sleeve. I hate feeling like everything could get worse before it gets better. Amy sighed softly. You've been through worse, Tammy. This ain't the thing that breaks you. Tammy smiled faintly.
I know.
But it scares me. Being scared means you still care, Amy replied. It means you're still fighting. They sat together quietly, the rustle of leaves filling the space between them. A few kids played in the distance. A dog barked somewhere behind them. Ordinary sounds. Ordinary life. And somehow, that made everything feel a little lighter. After a while, Tammy looked at her sister. You remember when we were kids, and we used to come to parks like this and make up stories about running away? Amy laughed.
Yeah.
You'd pack 2 stuffed animals and 5 packets of noodles like that was enough to survive. Tammy snorted. It was a good plan. It was a terrible plan, Amy corrected, still laughing. But we always figured it out together. Even back then. The memory softened Tammy's expression. We always came back home. And we always will, Amy said. The drive back was quiet but comfortable. When they arrived home, the boys ran toward them, their hands messy with crayons and excitement. Amy scooped them up, and Tammy watched with affection warming her chest. She loved these little humans, even if she sometimes felt like she was watching life move faster than she could keep up. Inside, Chris dropped by unannounced, as he usually did, carrying a bag of groceries that no one asked for and a grin that was way too big for someone who wasn't planning mischief. I brought 0 junk this time, he announced proudly. You lying, Tammy said immediately. Chris gasped dramatically. I am offended, hurt, insulted, and emotionally damaged by this accusation. Amy grabbed the bag, peeked inside, and pulled out a family-sized bag of cheese puffs. Chris froze. Okay, that snuck in there somehow. The room filled with laughter again, the kind of laughter that stitched painful days back together. By evening, Tammy felt calmer than she had all week. She settled into her recliner, blanket tucked around her, watching the boys play with their toy blocks on the carpet. Amy sat beside her, sorting through wedding invitations she hadn't mailed yet. It felt like a normal night. Tammy stared straight ahead, her eyes glistening, though she blinked quickly to keep the tears from falling. She had fought so many battles already. Battles with her health, her emotions, the world's judgment, and now another challenge was unfolding in front of her, one she hadn't seen coming. For a moment her mind drifted to the years she had been dismissed, criticized, or talked about like she wasn't a real person with real pain. But now, sitting here with a diagnosis hanging in the air, she felt exposed in a way she couldn't hide behind humor or anger. Chris reached out slowly, his hand stopping just short of hers, giving her the choice to accept comfort or not. Tammy didn't take it, but she didn't pull away either. She simply breathed, trying to steady the emotions swirling in her chest. She whispered something too soft for anyone to fully catch, but the tremble in her voice told the story. She wasn't ready for this news, but she wasn't going to crumble either. As the doctor continued outlining the next steps, tests, treatments, expectations, Tammy finally looked up, her gaze sharper now, filled with a fragile but undeniable determination. Because even though the diagnosis had shaken her deeply, she had learned one truth through all her struggles. Every time the world doubted her, she pushed back harder. And this time, even as the uncertainty wrapped itself around her like a shadow, she wasn't going to let fear be the final word. The room felt colder now, as if the air itself shifted after the doctor stepped out, leaving Tammy and her family alone with the weight of everything that had just been revealed. No one spoke at first. The silence wasn't empty. It was full, crowded with feelings they didn't know how to sort yet. Tammy exhaled slowly, her breath trembling, her eyes fixed on a single spot on the floor as if grounding herself in something that wouldn't move beneath her. But even in that stillness, the truth pulsed around her. Her life was changing again, in ways she had never imagined. Amy was the first to move. She sat down beside Tammy, not grabbing her or overwhelming her with questions, just being there, the same way she had been through every painful milestone. Her presence alone was its own kind of comfort, soft but steady. Tammy finally lifted her head, and when their eyes met, the fear she'd been holding back cracked just enough to show through. Amy blinked hard, pushing her own emotions down to stay strong for her sister, but Tammy saw it anyway. The worry, the love, the helplessness. Chris stepped closer, rubbing the back of his neck, his usually confident, joking demeanor nowhere in sight. He wasn't the loud, protective brother right now. He was quiet, careful, watching Tammy like he was trying to understand exactly what she needed. But even he couldn't hide the fear in his eyes. This wasn't a storyline or a TV confession or some dramatic moment for cameras. It was real life, raw, and unpredictable. And the thought of losing their sister to something they couldn't fight for her scared them more than any weigh-in or emergency ever had. Tammy finally spoke, her voice low, thin, but steady enough to hold meaning. She said she wasn't done fighting, not after everything she had already survived. She reminded them of the nights when she could barely breathe, the hospital stays where doctors doubted she would ever walk out again, the long climb from hopelessness back into life. And now, sitting here with a diagnosis she never expected, she made it clear that she wasn't going backwards.
Not now.
Not ever. Her words weren't loud, but they carried the strength of every battle she refused to lose. Her family listened, their eyes softening, their shoulders easing the slightest bit as they realized she still had that fire, dimmed for a moment, shaken, but far from gone.